Today is the final day that Russia is the rotating president of the Security Council. But if you're a Netflix fan in Russia, let's see, where it's 5:30 in Moscow. It's already March 1st in Vladivostok. Netflix will fall under a series of new obligations in Russia after it was added to a register of audiovisual services. It will be forced to play pro-Putin propaganda. That's where at some point, I get it. You're in business to make money, but that's what Ford said when they owned Opel and they made trucks for Hitler. At some point, you have to draw a line and just kind of, and this is, if there's a fallout in whatever happens in Russia, I hope it is a long, thoughtful think about who you do business with, like China. I mean, if it's suddenly the cool hashtag or the cool TikTok challenge, not like Putin, then maybe that would spread to China as well. But so Netflix is being told how to do business, and their answer is okay, but the money will still keep coming in, and the whole thing. Well, as we speak, by the way, the Russian economy is tanking. They held off the opening of their stock market until It's 5:30. They're now 5:30 later today, and their stock market's been open 2.5 hours. I haven't checked it, but there's a reason for that. It's because the ruble took a nosedive late last night, our time. People immediately started lining up at ATMs in Russia, and this is something that if you haven't traveled much, let me tell you this: it's fairly special to be an American, and we're also super lucky because our currency is the reserve currency for the entire world's economy. And it's not because of the awesome artwork. It's because of the awesome country that it represents. Russians went to their ATMs to pull out dollars before, while they could. But about 24 hours ago, it took like 89 rubles to equal $1. And in the span of 24 hours, if your savings was in rubles, it is just evaporating. The faster you get to an ATM and pull it out in dollars, because the U.S. dollar isn't dropping today, it's increasing in value, and so that is the kind of thing. And I mean, I don't want to hitch the cart before the horse on this one, but that's the kind of thing where legitimately some Democrats and lots of Republicans were saying, where was this sanction 2 weeks ago? Where was this a week ago? And the answer was, well, you don't say what your deterrent will be first. Well, then it's not really much of a deterrent. And if this had been threatened 6 days ago, then maybe 100 well, actually, he's not. He's only invading with right now only about 40,000 guys because he knows that the B team is you don't want them in there. But legitimately, and I know that the Ukrainians are shutting up about this because they're being nice guys about this. But a lot of Ukrainian social media is like, where was this pain a week ago? Where you have Russians. A couple of things are happening, all of a sudden, this Monday in Moscow, which is the epicenter of all power and influence in all of Russia. One of them is people are getting in line to get their money out of the bank while they can in dollars. Another one is, and you can't emphasize this, families are being notified that their sons died 5 days ago, taking an airfield and then not keeping it.
Wait, I thought they still had 0 losses, according to official Russian numbers.
And that just adds salt to the wound. And they're not. Here's the other thing, because it is 2022, they're not finding out from the government. They're not getting a letter signed by Putin. They're getting denials. And then to add even more insult to injury, their bodies are being left where they fell. And the Ukrainians over the weekend did something remarkably humanitarian and touching, and at the same time, information war win. They set up a hotline for Russian mothers. You can call Kiev from Moscow. There's a hotline where you can talk to a live human and they have lists of confirmed Russian dead from their documents on them, and they'll say he's not on the list or he's on the list. So the enemy, the Nazis, as Putin says, are the ones doing the humanitarian thing and being truthful about the dead. But also, people are on social media and they're going down the block talking to Yuliana, because her son Pavel is in the 55th Guards Motorized Rifle Regiment as well, and my son and her son went in through Belarus last week, and I haven't heard from him, in 5 days, and so they're finding out that way that Yuliana, that Pavel called his mom and said, I've got bad news about little Alexei. He took an RPG to the face, and there's really not much left. And we hauled ass so fast we left his body in his vehicle. And that literally, that's all I did all weekend long was examine video of the aftermath of these Ukrainian ambushes. And so that's having an impact because, it didn't really make the news here in the United States. But part of what drove Gorbachev out of Afghanistan was that the cost of that war for the Russians finally caught up. By 1988-89, there were grandmothers and mothers in Red Square holding pictures of their dead sons with a black ribbon, across the portrait. And it was his army portrait and all that. And it became a big a thing, but now with social media, people in Russia are seeing what's going on. Did you see, I tweeted it out, and it's in Ukrainian and Russian, but did you see the one thing that I put out, Greg, where there's a Ukrainian guy with a dash cam, and there's a Russian armored personnel carrier called a MTLB, for the record, and the crew are just standing around, just smoking and joking.
Are they out of gas?
Just dead. And the guy pulls up and goes, "You guys broken down?" And the driver goes, "Nah, we're out of fuel." And he goes, "Oh, really?"
There you go.
And he says, "I'll tow you back to Russia." And they laugh.
Yes. I also saw a video, and again, fog of war, you tend to tweet things that are verified and you have good sources, but I saw like a farming thing. What are they called? I'm having a hard. It was tractor? Pulling a farming tractor pulling a Russian tank back to Russia. And again, can't be verified, but I just at least love the visual. And Brian, it's clear that Americans don't have a stomach for boots on the ground in Ukraine right now. So sanctions is one of our biggest plays. And what you're alluding to here and what you're talking to very directly is Russian people themselves are going to suffer a little bit here from sanctions, oftentimes more than the people at the top. But I think that's partially the point. We're hoping that these sanctions do make the Russian people feel a little pain, but that their anger and resentment is fueled towards their leadership and not the rest of the world. Because Putin has to, at some point, step down, which I don't think will ever happen, or be overthrown by his own people. It has to come crashing down. And one of the tools in your toolbox is to foment Russian anger of your average citizens over there against their leadership.
Yeah, and like an example of some of the videos that are all over Russian social media are this guy in a village north of Kiev. He's doing a walking tour of a Russian armor column that is utterly destroyed, or the vehicles in the rear are flat out abandoned with the engine idling. And pardon me for the language.
Правда, есть разрушения, блядь, но не без этого. Вот вам, пожалуйста, блядь.
Both for the fact that it's in Ukrainian, and if you do speak Ukrainian, you know that he is implying that some of the Russian soldiers actually have dogs for mothers. Female dogs for mothers, and that they also do unspeakable things with their own mothers, and that but there's bodies in the vehicles. What's left anyway, and that so people in Russia are literally going over these videos looking for their son because he hasn't texted in 4 days, or he hasn't texted in 48 hours, and you know what that means. Anyone who's deployed since September 12th, 2001. You go with your phone, and you're texting on the phone constantly that you're okay or whatever. Back in a second, AM. In all probability, in the next few hours, the army of Belarus, which again is a cosplay of say circa 1952 Russia, are going to pay their bill to Vladimir Putin and probably penetrate to their south and cut off Ukraine's western border, which is how we're going to resupply them with anti-tank missiles and the whole thing. And it'll be a big, big stink. So the entire, hey, let's meet at the border of Belarus and negotiate. That meeting happened earlier. I don't even know if it's still going on. The Russian version, the head of the Russian delegation, Vladimir Medinsky, said, quote, as every hour of conflict brings new casualties among Ukrainian soldiers, we are definitely interested in reaching any agreements as soon as possible. But those agreements should be for the benefit of both sides, close quote. And the Ukrainians said, yeah, withdraw. And the deal is I spent the weekend looking at all the video I could look at, raw video, the entire thing, just seeing all my little details I could find. I cannot find any video that the Russians are releasing of Ukrainian prisoners, but you can find all the Russian prisoners you want are on Ukrainian video. And it's not the same guy in different uniforms. In fact, the newest one I saw this morning was a guy from the central eastern part of far eastern Russia, and he's ever been in his life. I think if you want to know something about Xi, it would be if that happened, then you know everything you need to know about Xi. That he shakes your hand, takes your gas, and he takes back several thousand square miles that the Russians took in 1945 when they kicked the Japanese out. So.
Putin's aspirations extend far beyond Ukraine. I listen to people like Gary Kasparov or other Russian dissidents that talk about his plan, and he's telegraphed it for years. American sentiment, as the polls show, want to support Ukraine more, but we still don't believe in troops on the ground in that area. Biden's State of the Union is going to be very interesting to watch tomorrow night and see if it moves the polling at all in either direction.
You think it's funny to be out of fuel? Maybe you left with Novichok MRE. All right. Well, big events happening on the horizon. Belarus is going to, in all likelihood, U.S. surveillance aircraft are indicating to me that we're watching Belarus enter the conflict later on today.